from here, Mark. I've been around
Okay.
here for a bit.
Okay, so we're live now. Heidi Oropesa
Wonderful.
with
Yeah.
Florida You Judge, along with Nina Hayden and our guest, Mark Oliver. There's 2 minutes before we start at 6 o'clock. Back in the background, we're playing non-copyrighted music. And so enjoy.
Yeah.
We'll be right before we go on. And so we're hopefully now giving some time for our viewers to come on. We already have somebody viewing. Good. And start sending in your questions through the chat. Comment chat section for Mark Oliver, who's running for House District 70 in Florida, right?
Right.
Yes.
So let's see. It's not 6 yet, so let's just give a little bit more time for people. We have 4 people watching on now.
Right on. I'll be looking at the chat too, Haley. I'll take a look at the chat.
Well, and not only that, but after tonight we're going to have a back-to-back candidates for this district seat. After Mark's going to have a full hour to address the public, the electorate. We're going to have right after him Michelle Grimsley, and then right after that Michelle Rayner. Keisha Bell indicated through her campaign manager, Mary, and I was able to speak to him, and so she's booked up until August, so she wasn't able to participate tonight. And so we have a couple more seconds.
I'm going to share this on my own page now.
So this is Hipster Cutthroat, DOTEXE, promoting the artist that created this song to give them a prop. I love this song, by the way. All right, it's 6 o'clock, and so good evening, Mark Oliver. How are you?
Good evening. I am great. I love that entrance song. Brings me back to my workout days where you get pumped up right before you go.
It's a good. It's a good.
Love it.
Good one. So we have 10 people now watching, and
Awesome.
good evening, and as always, my good friend, comrade Nina Hayden.
Hey, what's up, everyone? How are you?
Hello.
And she's run for office before. She's been elected to office.
Yes. School board.
Yep.
Pinellas County.
Yep. So okay, so Mark, good evening. Tell us about yourself.
Yes.
Who are you? What is your background? Tell us.
Oh, I love it. That's the number one asked question is, who are you? Why are you running for office? And this is important. And we got a whole hour, so I'll take my time in explaining for some people who don't know. Sometimes we get 2 minutes to answer this question, or a minute. So
we have a full hour.
Yeah, right. So I'm running for District 70, first off, which is a state house representative position, which was currently held by Wingate Newton, and he's vacating the seat to run for county commission. So it's an open seat. And I grew up in Pinellas County. My life and what led me to politics was 2 years ago. My entire life changed completely. I was personal training somebody at the gym, and I met this young kid who had Down syndrome. Wow. And I asked to volunteer to train him. And within a month, this kid lost 20 pounds. His name's Andrew, actually. Got on a bike for the first time in his life. And more importantly, his psychological side changed. And he became my best friend.
Wow.
And I got involved into the Special Olympics. And I ended up building one of the largest Special Olympics teams in Hillsborough County history. Ended up now working out of 9 schools. And now I have a full-time staff of 15 people and work with 400 individuals with disabilities on a daily basis. But it really took me working with Andrew to see what we can do when we're given an opportunity, right? You know, my mom had me at the age of 14. I was the first in my family to go to university, so I know what it's like to struggle and prevail. I started a business at 21 years old, and I'm 28 years old today, but I wouldn't be here without standing on the shoulders of men, women of all different walks of life. I cannot be where I am today on my own. And we have opportunities here in our state to provide access to education, better healthcare, environment, and to help individuals with disabilities live their best life. And that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to provide opportunities for our community. And that's why I got into this race. And that's who I am. That's what led me to run for office. And I tell people all the time, I'm a regular person. I'm literally just like you. I'm not a polished politician, never dreamed of running for office. Wasn't this plan I had. I thought I was going to go to the NFL growing up all my life. But no, I always put the community first. And I tell people there's this wonderful tool out there called Google. Google my name. Google who's running for office. And if you look back and you look closely enough, you'll see I've been volunteering since high school for charities, doing youth mentorship since I was in high school myself.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt like everything that I did was God's plan to lead me to run for office. And that's why I'm here today, sitting in front of all of you.
Let me, can I take this, Haiti? Can I get one question in there?
Absolutely. Yep.
So let me ask you a question, Mark, because I love hearing about your history, your work, what you've done for the community. But can you give me just one thing that you believe from your experience working in the community will equate to being a representative in Tallahassee for your community? Just one, I would say, attribute that you bring to the table that you can tell the viewers and those that are voting for you that would equate to being a good attribute and a good representative in Tallahassee.
Well, being a representative and people we elect, we expect them to be a public servant. A public servant who's going to put their community first and their self-interest second. And that is one attribute that I've had. Working with the population that I work with, it's a tough population. It's not very lucrative. And you have to do it because you want to help your community first. You really want to have to make a difference. So that is something about me. I think my work shows that I'm not self-serving. I'm willing to want our community to have the best opportunities that we have. So our representatives, they're there to serve the community, and that's what I'm going to do.
Okay.
You can continue, Nina.
Okay,
I'm
great.
good. I'm relaxing.
You got one answer.
Well, here, let me ask this. Let me.
Go ahead. Yeah.
You have, as a House district candidate, if you are elected, you're only going to have 2 years. We know that the legislature the majority is Republicans. You're running as a Democrat. Okay,
Yeah.
So you have 2 years. You have 4 terms that you can run for, and you know how you only have 6 bills that that's your limit to pass. Yes. Okay.
Correct.
So it's going to be really hard. That's an uphill battle already. Okay. And I know that you've spoken about, and I love it. And Nina, either you can disagree or not. We don't have to disagree. I like debate. I like contrasting views.
Yeah.
So jump in and don't feel shy about criticizing me or saying I don't agree with you, Haiti, because I
I don't feel shy.
You know that I know that you love me regardless.
Yeah.
But it's going to be very challenging when I hear candidates saying, this is my platform on education, on criminal justice reform, on healthcare, on affordable housing. It's very ambitious. It sounds very ambitious.
Right.
What are you definitely, if you are elected, to hit the ground running, what is on the agenda right now? What do you plan already on going in there and saying, this is what I'm ready to start drafting this bill?
Yeah.
Good.
Tell me and talk to us about that. That's what I want to know.
Well, first off, you're right. We're in the minority as Democrats in the state legislature. So getting things done as a Democrat is already hard enough. And one thing that separates me from my opponents is my ability to build relationships, right? We have to be able to work on the other side. We have to be able to build those relationships, but stay true to our morals, to stay true to what the values are of Democrats, but to be able to still build those relationships because we need those votes in order to pass a bill, right? And in every sports team I've been on, I've been a captain of every team. And in order to win a championship, you have people from all different walks of life coming together for the greater good, right? And regardless of where you are and what you believe in, that's the only way you're going to win. And that's the same thing in the legislature. We're going to have to come together, all right? We're going to have to work together in order to bring back to our community. But you said the first thing I would do. The first thing is the reason I got into this race, right? I talked about this a lot earlier, but we're ranked 50th in the nation in special needs funding. 50th. Every year they want to cut the budget more and more. It's almost a 8-year wait list to get services for your child. If you want to get services for behavior analysts, if you need your child to get in a group home, majority of the people I work with are 22 and up. And you can be in high school until you're 21 with a developmental disability, but then you're 30 years old with a 8-year-old mindset, right? And you still need these services. And there's this huge wait list, and parents can't get them on these services that they need. And it's a complicated procedure. And number one, it's already a long wait list. And two, there's not much money for them. So the first thing I want to do is to make sure that our med waiver, which is the way they get their funding, is fully funded, that we can increase the money there. And number two is to make sure that there is not this long wait list.
Got it. So that's what's important for you as one of the bills you're going to be seeking to pass.
100%, yes, correct.
Do you have any idea of how you're going to connect with the other legislative leaders on this issue? Do you know? Have you just done some research as to what committee you should go to, or what individuals you should connect with, or are you just going to just get up to Tallahassee and then just kind of work your way around the place? What's your strategy? I'd love to hear that.
Well, I wish I can go up there and charm everybody, but that's not going to be the case. So I'm going to have to work alongside.
But you are charming.
Thank you. Yes. I'm not going to be able to charm all of them, but I have to be able to work alongside, the caucuses. I've been endorsed by the Florida Disability Caucus, right? Okay. And this is an issue it should be nonpartisan, right? There's no reason why this community, which is already overlooked, has to get their funding cut more and more. Like, how much are we going to cut them? So when it comes to getting issues passed, it's not about myself. It's working in with these local organizations, working in for going for environment, working with our environmental caucus, working with the Sierra Club. It's not about me, and I wouldn't get here all on my own. I've said that earlier, and I'm not going to get any bill passed on my own, and I understand that. And it's going to be working alongside our community and our residents.
So I want just to keep on that point, because it's very important, and I'm just quite sick. I don't know what Nina's feelings are. Mm-hmm. I know you can speak totally to this because you've been in politics, Nina. I'm so tired of the divisiveness and the energy spent and time on mudslinging or divisiveness and name calling. I don't want that from a candidate or a politician. Yeah. I just don't. There's a lot of people that are very negative and toxic in every circle, social, political, but that shouldn't exist. It's about the people, right? Exactly. It's about their time and about having something productive done. How important is it to you, and do you commit to putting partisanship aside and trying to seek where you can agree on with the opposite, with another party, the Republicans, and trying to find those things that you agree on and that you can both pursue and have passed, so that something meaningful, significant, and something actually happens that benefits the people?
Yes, definitely. But I will make sure, one thing about me is I'm going to stay true to my morals. I'm going to stay true to what got me into this race and the principles of what I believe in. So yes, when it comes to, we talked about it, working on the other side and building those relationships, we have to, right? Our world right now is completely divided. And it's either you're on one side over here or you're on one side over here. There's really no middle ground anymore. And
what are you going to do to try to seek unity without compromising your principles, your democratic principles, your right. morals? What are you going to do to try to be a unifier?
And before you answer that, really quick, what Haiti is getting to, and what I think is, how can you be a leader and that folks can look to as to how we should behave or model ourselves as citizens, specifically in your district?
Exactly. Well, when it comes to being a leader, that's something I've done my entire life, right? I led by example. I'm a hard worker, and I always find a way to get the job done. And if you ask anybody who knows me, that's probably gonna be the first term they say about me. He works hard, right? I was a walk-on football player, and if anybody watches sports, you're carrying other people's equipment just to get on the team. And I'm not a tall guy. I'm not the strongest guy, but I know what it takes to work hard. I've been doubted my entire life. I've been overlooked. I've been told you couldn't open a business. I failed, but I found a way to continue without giving up to be where I am today.
What I would love for the viewers is to get an idea of how you would be if you were elected. how would you run um, your political career in the area that you're in? And what I mean is, how much contact will you have on a daily basis with the folks that are there? What types of things will you do to make sure that your community is involved with what's happening up in Tallahassee? Often what happens is folks get elected and it's more like a ego thing, like, okay, great, I'm in this position. I
Mhm.
go up to Tallahassee, I kind of disappear, and then I come back maybe every now and then. Um, a couple things. What do you sense your community needs in terms of an elected official and your operations in the community? And what type of person will you be? Now, I'm asking you this because it'll give the viewers, should you be elected, a way to hold you accountable for what you're saying.
I love it. It's a great question,
Okay.
right?
All right.
First off, to answer this, I don't. I didn't have to run for office. I have a business that's sustainable. I have a great business where I don't have to be out working every day. We're functioning and very well. But there is too many communities that are overlooked, and there's too many representatives that are there, as you said, for themselves. Right? This isn't about me, and it's never been about me. I could have took an easy route and not ran for office and not have to take all the headaches that come along with it. But I want to serve our community. And one thing you can expect from me is transparency. I'll be transparent with our residents to let them know what's going on in the legislature, what bills are trying to be passed. And one of the most important things I think is visibility, right? Like I am there with our people. I will be there at our community. I'll be there at our HOA meetings. I'll be there at our neighborhood associations. I am there with our community, and you can be easily reach me. And if you don't believe it, my cell phone number is 727-831-2829. This is my personal cell phone number. You can call me and I'll answer it. It's not a campaign number. This is a personal number. You're going to hear my voice on the phone. And so that's where I'll be. People will have my number, or they're not going to go through my secretary first, unless the calls start getting too much, right? But you'll have direct access to me, and I'll make sure I'll get back to you. So transparency, being there with our people, and listening, right? I can be there all I want, and I can be out there in the community, but if I'm not listening, I'm not doing anything. I'm not doing any justice for our community, right? So I'm going to listen. I want to have sit downs. I tell people all the time, even if I know you're not going to contribute to our campaign, and we know how much money is important to campaigns, but you're a registered, you're in the district, right? Whether you're going to vote for me, you're going to vote for the three of them are my opponents, or whether you voted for me or not when I win, I want to sit down with you and hear your concerns. And it's not about holding these grudges, right? Because there's people that don't like me, and when I get elected, they may not vote for me, but I'm still representing them. So I'm going to still hold that class and build those relationships once elected. I'm going to listen to our residents.
Mark, let the public know what area District 70 encompasses. Like, what does it cover?
Yeah.
I know because it's like 3 counties that it covers. Am
Yeah,
I correct?
so District 70 covers basically South St. Petersburg. It's this weird line.
Yeah.
Parts of Manatee, Hillsborough, and Ruskin. It's a very gerrymandered district with a large portion of the district is in St. Petersburg.
Okay, so now that you say that, so the bulk of that district is South St. Pete, yes?
Correct, yes.
Okay, so I received this article about 2 weeks ago, and it's very important that I think that the public to know what are your thoughts as to what this article relayed. This is from Channel 10, and the headline is "A Look Inside the 2 Zip Codes with the Highest COVID-19 Numbers in Pinellas County." Right, and it's talking about, and I'm gonna read it. Not paraphrase. Research shows your zip code can be one of the biggest predictors of your health. And in Pinellas County, the 2 zip codes with the highest number of COVID number cases help paint a picture of why. We have got to be more cognizant of what's going on, said Rep. Wingate Newton. That's who's leaving now. This seat, right, that you're running to replace. Not replace, but to fill, because he's gone. He's going to, I believe, go to run for commission. who represents District 70 in the state legislature, which covers the zip codes of 33705 and 33712. These two zip codes are responsible for the highest numbers of COVID-19 cases in Pinellas. But why? And I'm going to ask the other candidates that are coming on at 7 and 8. I'm going to ask the same question about this article because I sent the three of you the article, and we'll just break it down. And I kind of send it late, so maybe like 30 minutes or an hour before the broadcast. But the leading indicator is probably a lack of access to healthcare. You already mentioned healthcare. You already mentioned that this is something important to you. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so it appears that this area is being impacted in comparison to other areas more so, much more so, seriously more so, concerningly more so, because of a lack of health care. Okay.
Yeah.
And so we're going to go into the other areas that the article addresses. That why is this so? We're in the middle of a pandemic, and there seems to be an area in the district that you're running to represent that is being hardly hit by COVID.
Exactly.
So we have healthcare. These two zip codes are located in South St. Petersburg and disproportionately suffer from poverty. So we have now a healthcare issue in that district, and there's a lot of poverty, okay, and diminished socioeconomic opportunity. The population is overwhelmingly black neighborhoods, okay. Struggle, and the neighborhoods struggle in areas doctors say impact health the most. According to the Office of Disease Prevention, Health and Health Promotion, our well-being doesn't start in the doctor's office. It starts in our homes, communities, and other social institutions like schools. So now we have something, and the workplace, economic, educational. These are called social detriments of health, which the ODPHP says are the conditions and the environments in which people are born, live, learn, work, play, worship, and age that affect a wide range of health, functioning, and quality of life outcomes and risks. It says it's also home to Melrose Elementary School, which just a few years ago was ranked as the worst in the entire state. So what are we doing? There's a wealth of, and maybe that was not the best term, but South St. Pete needs help. What are we doing in these other areas, maybe with the 6 bills that you can pursue in the legislature to start helping? I want South St. Pete helped. It sounds like they need help ASAP. What are we going to do?
And that was a lot we can go into. We got a lot from that article, right?
And we got a lot of time because we're still not even into half the hour of the broadcast. So you can hit whichever, if all, or just one or two that you.
Well, let me try to narrow that down a little bit, Haiti. First of all, Mark, do you think South St. Pete needs help? That's the first question. And 2, if you think South St. Pete needs help, what are 3 things that you can do to facilitate the needs of the community?
Perfect. Yes, of course we need help. If we didn't need help, I wouldn't be running for office. So I let it be how it is. But there's a need, and that's why I'm running. And so let's first talk about one of the biggest issues. When I say the biggest issue, this is what I get when I'm out talking to voters.
Okay.
When I'm out at their doors is number 1, housing, right? Housing is a huge issue in District 70. And my plan to address the housing issue is, number 1, to protect the Sadowski funds, right? For some people who may not be watching, Sadowski funds is money that is supposed to be set aside for affordable housing, but every year they try to take that money, but we finally got it this year. Number 2 is rent control. Families are having gentrification is happening, right? We're getting kicked out of our neighborhoods because their rent is going up at a high rate. Just because rent can go up from $1,200 a month to $1,800 a month, just because you can, does not make it right. This happened to my family, and they lost their house about 6 months ago, in a house that we've been in for 10 years because this landlord did the exact same thing. Some people may say,
what are you going to do? What are you going to do with that? Let's just stay there because we're going on rent control. What do we do to prevent that from happening? Let's talk about gentrification. What do we do to stop that?
Well, when we're talking about rent control, on your first question, what we had is, there are states right now where rent shouldn't be going up at more than a 5% inflation rate, right? Rent right now is going up, 10, 12% in some areas, which is crazy just because how the market is changing. And some people may say, well, it's a landlord, it's a business. Well, I'm a landlord myself. I have multiple properties. And I believe in rent control still as a landlord, and even especially now more than ever, right? With this pandemic going on and all the and holding off on evictions. And so rent control is a big place. Another thing when we're talking about housing is I like to use this term called equitable housing, right? A lot of people hear this term called affordable housing. Well, the problem is when we continue to place low income households in the same part of the district, we need to start focusing on placing them into working class housing, working class areas, and market value, such as your downtown St. Pete, South Tampa. Because when we continue to place them in the one part of the district, we're not going to get that business development that we want, right? We're not going to get these big corporations coming into these areas.
How do you think other folks will feel moving those who are of a lower socioeconomic status into a more middle class or wealthier area? What do you think other folks will think? And could that cause a flight, like for the ones who are more economically stable to move to another place? Like, how do you think that's something that you can actually, that will actually work its way out to in a way that is promising?
Answer that question, and then I have somebody who sent in a
question. Well, yeah. So we're talking about socioeconomical diversity in the household. And we talked earlier in this show about unity, about coming together. That is when we are our strongest, when we come together. And when we continue to place these households in the same area, when these businesses don't come there to develop, we are getting hit worse, right? Because number one, we're not going to have job opportunities, right? When there's no job opportunities, there's nothing for our youth to get involved in. Guess what goes up? Crime goes up, right? So when we can place more, if we can get more businesses throughout the community, we're going to be able to provide careers, all right? A lot of people talk about jobs for our community. I want careers, right? And that's one issue we're having is when we're in the low income household, we don't have these businesses and career opportunities. Number two, if we do this, our education will increase as well. Because now we're going to have teachers who will want to come over to these schools as well. So that is why I talk about equitable housing, by focusing on placing low income housing and middle class housing and market value housing throughout the district. Don't put it in one part of the district, and rent control.
Okay, so we have D. Wilkins just wrote in and said rent is increasing because the landlords only see the dollar and want to take the best areas and redefine the value, so we cannot afford them any longer.
I think that's pretty much what I tapped into, and she's right on the spot, right? That's a big issue that we're seeing with our residents. They can't afford the rent, right? And we're at a point now we need to focus on providing more opportunities for our community to have home ownership, so we can create generational wealth. Right now, we have a hard time with our community being able to be able to purchase a home. So they're renting. And sometimes home ownership isn't for everybody, but I do want to push it on our community so they can have generational wealth. But however, if we can't afford the rent, where are we going to go?
Okay, so let me ask you this. Now, is there, how about on the other areas? Anything else? You don't have to. You're free to, because, again, I know that you're going to only have 2 years. So I like to be realistic. If I was running for the seat that you're running for, which I have no ambitions to run for anything. I enjoy pretty much what I do as a lawyer and do my activism here and there when I have the time to do that. You only have 2 years. So if there's nothing else really that you're as passionate about as going in there and getting something done with getting funding for the disabled community, and maybe, what you just spoke to as far as affordable housing, is there anything else, like as far as healthcare, education, that and then I'm going to ask you one question, because this is something that I'm passionate about, that I've been working on for a long time with the criminal justice reform. But before I ask you that, anything else that you want to address in the areas that article addressed, why South St. Pete is being impacted?
Yeah, definitely a few areas I'd like to address while I'm on here tonight.
Okay.
Next one I want to get into is education. right? Education is a huge, near and dear to my heart. I'm a product of a public school education. So is my family. I went to public school all throughout my life in Pinellas County. And a lot of people talk about when they say education, I support teachers. I want teachers' salary higher. And as you said earlier, if you don't have a plan, what are you going to do? Right? So I have a plan. It's called the Fair Share for Florida's Future Plan. This plan was proposed in the past. And what this will do for us, if we can, on our top corporations, just the top 1%, if we can just put a 2.7% tax on the top corporations, listen to what we can do. We can then pay teachers a starting salary at $50,000. Then we can invest millions of dollars into early childhood education. My family just adopted a 3 and a 4-year-old about a few days before I filed to run for this race. And I see the struggle for them to be able to get that education they need before they get into kindergarten. And we all know how important that is. With this plan, we'll be able to invest over $5 million into vocational training. College isn't for everybody, right? I was fortunate enough to play football, so I was able, it helped me out. But if that wasn't the case, college probably wasn't for me, right? Didn't use my degree, opened a business. However, we can focus in, as I said earlier, on careers. Focus in on carpentry program, plumbing, electrician, apprentice programs in our schools, business development. So when people graduate high school, that college might not be for them, but they learn this trade, a trade that can make them 6 figures coming out, literally 6 figures, a trade that they don't need a college degree for, and they can run a business and they can have a successful life, right? So with this plan, I want to focus on paying our teachers more, early childhood education, and vocational training.
Before you get to your question, Haiti, and I know you're coming up next with that, but I want to ask you this question. What types of partnerships in the community where you are in your district are you making or will you make to help those ideals that you have to come to pass? For example, I mean, you're looking at controlling rent increases and those types of things. You need to connect with, I would assume, mayors or local leaders or those in offices, and to have an understanding of how to actually do that, or what types of laws affect those businesses or landlords and those types of things. I'm interested to hear locally, what partnerships are you developing or will you develop?
Well, first and foremost, I support home rule in Florida. I believe that our voters elected our local officials to take certain charges in our community. So I would like to partner in with our local officials, build those relationships with our city council, our county commission, to work alongside Habitat for Humanity with Mike Sutton when it comes to housing, right? Because he's getting the job done with what they're doing, providing home ownership. So it's about working alongside these organizations, working alongside in our community. Just like earlier today, we have an issue now with the food desert. So I make sure every single Friday I sometimes go twice a week, but every Friday I'm out delivering meals to our elderly through an organization called Meals on Wheels. And to making sure they're funded, right? Our nonprofits are a big backbone that give back to our community, to making sure if they're going to make a difference there and I see that in the legislature, to make sure that they're getting appropriately funded so we can continuously give back to where we need to be.
Okay.
Okay, and any of the areas that you want to address before I ask you my criminal justice?
Oh yeah, definitely. When it comes to environment's big to me. One misconception that we have with environment is that environment and business do not go hand in hand, or environment and growth do not go hand in hand. In reality, it does, right? And so that's why we need new ideas in Tallahassee. And I would like to invest more into solar into our communities, because right now, solar is hiring more people than the gas, coal, and oil companies combined. And it's paying starting an hourly rate at $22 an hour. And it's hiring a lot of minorities. And when we talk about jobs, this is a career. right? We're going to be able to protect. I see it as a win-win. We can protect our environment. We can add careers at the same time. Another thing that's important to me when it comes to environment are toll roads. I think they're the toll roads to nowhere. I'm a fitness guy. I have a background in fitness, and it's proven that living by a highway, by a toll road, you have a higher chance of getting asthma. I work with individuals with disabilities. You have a higher chance of developing a disability. Also, when it comes to environmental justice, right? To make sure our lower income communities are taken care of. When Hurricane Irma hit in Midtown of South St. Pete, we weren't ready. We weren't fully prepared for that, to lose electricity for 2 weeks. So to make sure that we are in there, our communities are taken care of when it comes to our environment, that we are environmental friendly. And when it comes to our beaches, right? Let's protect our beaches. Our tourism is one of our number one revenue driven sources for our state. So by us protecting our beaches, making sure they're cleaned up, make sure there's not oil spilled in our ocean, we are going to be able to drive up tourism. So yes, when it comes to environment and business, they do go hand in hand.
Okay, so I'm sure, especially with the backdrop in our national life right now, that you have some ideas, hopefully, as to criminal justice reform.
Yes, definitely. And I was actually, so funny story. I was actually on the air a few weeks back on ABC, and we were talking about what defunding the police meant and criminal justice reform. We have a big issue right now. And I still want to put this out there because a lot of people don't know what this term means. When I first heard it, I'm like, no, we can't do this at all. We need police officers. But then as we look more into it, right, a lot of our funding we're getting when it's to the police, our police units, which I don't think all of them are bad. However, some of the money is spent in areas that I don't think we need. I don't think we need militarized tanks. I don't think we need money for fitness facilities and all these other places where it goes, right? I would like to see some money allocated to mental health counseling. If we're going to take away money, I would like to see it advocate to our mental health, where when you have a dispatch call, that you're going to have a trained professional come out to your house who is trained through mental health and to be able to work with you. Not a police officer who's been working a 8-hour shift and he's coming up on the end of it. So if we're going to reallocate our money, that's where I think it should go, is in mental health. Also, when it comes to police, our criminal justice reform is ending the school to prison pipeline. Right now, if you go into the schools, I was there when they did the Great American Teach-In, and wasn't in the school, but I went to one of the schools, and I'm sitting there in the cafeteria hanging out with the kids, and then all of a sudden the lights go off. Oh, what happened? And silence. Right? We're literally lining our children up for the head to prison, and you go into the classrooms nowadays, and you can't question a teacher. If you question a teacher, you're in trouble. Right? So what do we like? There's no creative thinking. You can't think for yourself. They're in lines, walking in straight lines, eating the same food, the same cut pizzas as they do in prison.
Okay, so listen, I'm glad that you're addressing defunding, because it is maybe not the best a term to use to convey what, and you know what? I never assume what anybody some people want the elimination of police in the country, and some people take defunding to mean, per their interpretation, that it's not defunding. And we addressed that, Nina, when we had the forum, the community one on Zoom.
Right. Yeah.
That was the 1st question right out of the bat, and I think that I presented that question to one of your challengers, Michelle Rayner. But I know South St. Pete has been one of the cities that there's been the city has come out, persons that responded right after the George Floyd injustice that we all saw as a country. And so I'm sure they want to know what your thoughts are as to defunding. So you're not on board with eliminating the police. I'm assuming that you think that the police are necessary in society. Yes?
As I said before, we need someone to protect us. Right?
Okay, gotcha.
Not all police officers are bad cops. Some of my best friends are cops. Some guys I went to college and played football with are. And I just don't like the term because it sounds defund reminds me of divide, right? Instead it's reallocating. We've been defunding our education system for hundreds of years. We've been defunding the disability community for hundreds of years, right? So
So
why
so
don't
what you're saying, don't defund them, or defund them. It doesn't mean eliminate it. Let's look over their budget, and maybe some of the monies that they have that they can maybe pour into other areas that will make their services less necessary, right? Because if you pour into education, maybe crime stats go down. Yes?
yeah, let's
And
look at it as a community. Let's look at the budget, right? Let's look at it all together. And as I said before, if we're going to take money away, my first place would like to see it to go mental health. Because
okay, go. I'm sorry. I apologize for
yeah,
interrupting you.
our
Sorry.
community needs help in those areas, right? We have a high crime rate. So if we're going to take it away, that's where I'd like to see it go.
O
But
sea, I
see, here's the
go,
thing.
Nina.
Well, here's the thing you've got to look at when you talk about defunding. Then you've got to ask yourself, well, you got a lot of people who are going to vote where that money goes. So the question is, where is that money going to go? We have a large
Yeah.
budget in the state of Florida. You have various different agencies. Every agency feels as though they should be the one that's priority in terms of funding, right? So then your question is, who is the one that should be funding, or who's the priority in funding, and do all of your counterparts agree or disagree with where the money should go? It's not as straightforward as people, as folks think. You defund one agency, and then where people are fighting over that money and
Right.
where is to go next. So what's this? Do you have an idea? What's the solution to that? Or where do you think we go in that area?
Well, it's working in with our community, right? To say there's a perfect plan in place, because this term recently has been around, but now it's really under scrutiny. But right now, twice a week in Florida, a child or a teenager is taking their life from suicide. And this has gone up 50% over the last decade. I would like to see, if we are going to do this and we're going to take some money away, right? There's someone named Yasmin Flatterson who started something which is peer-to-peer interactions, where instead of suspending a child from school, instead of kicking them out where they go home where mom and dad work and now they're home alone and they can't really, how's that helping them? Let's get down to the core of the problem. These are peers that look like me, that look like you, that can go to counseling with you, that are trained. I love it because a lot of these people coming out are not trained, where they're going to be able to relate and to have these conversations. Because there's too many, I'm going to say it for myself as a young Black man, there's not many people I could have went to and just talked to and felt like I could open up, right? Because we have this status where we want to be tough, we want to be macho. And when you can get in this room and you can have these conversations, these heartfelt conversations with somebody that looks like you, that has your background, that can relate to you, that's where we can do it, right? And I said that word trained because that's what they are. So if I were to say top of my head, I would like I said before, I'd like to go to mental health counseling, but it's the peer-to-peer space, which is something I'm very passionate about.
Okay, so this is the question that I want to ask. I reached out via social media to the House Speaker now, incoming House Speaker Chris Sprowls, about he introduced legislation that passed in 2018 to create a criminal justice database, right? So
Mhm.
that we can look at uh, racial trends, right? Um, in the state, that still has not been created. Okay, so and he's anticipating. He said that it was gonna be operational. Maybe I think he told me at the beginning of 2021. I've been working with a gentleman that was instrumental in creating a database called Equitable Sentencing Analysis System. And what that does, I've had him on Florida You Judge in the past. There's a database right now. 5 public defenders already have implemented this system. There's 20 public defenders and only 5 out of the 20. And Bob Dillinger in this circuit, in the Sixth Circuit, has not implemented it. His counterpart out in Hillsborough County, Julian Holt, she has. She was the second in the state. And what this does, and on the heels to the series that was published by the Herald Tribune, Bias from the Bench, which showed they did a study, they did a series, and they put out numbers to show that Black men
Mm.
have higher sentences, or given higher sentences to their white counterparts, even for the same, when they're similarly situated, meaning there's inequities in the sentencing. That's huge, I believe, in criminal justice reform. And that's why I've been helping this gentleman promote and put the word out about this. If the criminal justice database that we are awaiting still as Floridians, that was mandated in 2018, comes out and does not have a feature where you can do a comparison such as ESAS, which basically can compare somebody who, in whichever of the counties of the 67 in the state, when there's a thing that us criminal defense attorneys know as a score sheet, which requires at least a minimum amount of prison that should be imposed unless there's a departure basis for departing. But where you can get that one defendant and compare, and it's basically to root out biases, not just black men, any women, men, any type of bias, but you can compare that with other sentences that have been given in the past to that one, to see if that defendant, maybe that state attorney in that county, is giving more of an offer recommendation as far as a sentence, when others in the past that are similarly situated have gotten less. What are your thoughts about that database that's currently available called ESAS, Equitable Sentencing Analysis System?
Well, that's a great question. But when it comes to looking into the database, I would love to look at it some more. Would love to connect in with you, and that's why you talk about building these relationships, and that's what it's about. So looking into what's going to best serve our community, right? I'm a firm believer that we should have sentences should match and be capped and match the crime, right? We have to stop talking. We got to stop taking these parents out of the households, right, and leaving their families to fall between the cracks for these petty crimes. We'll have to do this especially with our youth, and as we hit on earlier, that we got to stop the school to prison pipeline and offer first-time offenders, offer them an opportunity, because there's too many people, especially in the community I grew up in, where I see them not be able to get these jobs because of a petty crime that they had.
Have you had?
Wait, Nina, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I'm glad that you're interested in seeing it, okay? Because for our viewers and for you, Mark, Mr. Al A. Wellington Barlow will be on next Thursday on a live stream at 6, and he's going to do a demo of the actual system. And so if you're busy, because I'm sure you are, because campaigning is brutal, it'll be pre-recorded and you can see a demo of it next Thursday. Nina.
So my question is to you, Mark, what have you investigated in the school system? Because, as Haiti said, I was a former school board member. One of the things I campaigned upon and what I was able to see, because I worked at the public defender's office as a defense attorney, and I saw exactly what you're talking about. I saw the types of kids that were incarcerated in juvenile detention facility. I also saw a connection with their home environment. I actually went and visited many of those kids. Not only was I a defense attorney, but I also mentored a lot of the kids. I went into the school system, personal one-on-one, did mentoring with these kids, and I found out a lot about their home environment, where they came from, and was able to, in the context of being on the school board, bring up those issues as to what was causing the school to prison pipeline. So my question to you is, what have you investigated and what have you done thus far to really address that concern with the school to prison pipeline?
Yes, and thank you for all the work that you do for our community as well. And Haiti, definitely please send me that link over.
I will.
Into it.
Nina's awesome.
Yeah,
I'm blessed to have her in my life.
Yeah, that's great. No, you do a lot, and it's greatly appreciated. And when you talked about the home life, that is true. A lot of it comes down to that. Teachers are there 6 to 8 hours of the day, and the parents have them the rest of the day. And what are they doing during that time? And so when we talked about reallocating these funds, I like to see more youth programs for our community. We can have more role models, have more mentors. Anthony, come over here, buddy. Where we can have more people that will come out and support these young kids, which is what we need. I actually have one of mine here now. Come say hi. You know, I'm a mentor myself. I do this every single day. Say hi, buddy. Get on the camera. Bend down. Say hi. Get over here.
Oh,
Wait, you gotta say,
Hey,
"Aw,
oh,
hi."
there he is.
Oh, come
hey,
on, don't be shy.
yeah, wait.
Oh.
Hi, Anthony.
There he is.
Hey,
Aw.
aw, you're
We
adorable.
need people that are going to do this, right? I get
Right.
him 4 or 5 days a week, compared with a lot of other kids as well. Because I know one issue we have, is there's a lot of single moms out there that are raising kids on their own, right? And I love our women. There's nothing against that, but you do need a male role. You're going to need those male traits. You're going to need a male role model in your life. And that's why when I talk to my friends who are out here, I say, especially with all the protests going on, what happens when this dies out? I want to see you go be a youth mentor, go volunteer 10 hours a week. You can make a difference in a kid's life. Big brother, big sister, go out there and do that. So when it comes to reallocating money and bringing stuff back to the community, that's what I want to see. And it does happen at home. And when we talked about police earlier today, a lot of that comes from home too, right? Because that fear. When does a child go from loving police officers, idolizing them, wanting to be them, to being afraid of them, right? I hear too many times, and I hate when I hear this, when someone's in the kids in the car and the mom's like, "Oh, the cop's gonna get you. The cop's gonna get you," and I'm gonna call the cops on you, and they put this fear into our children's head.
What can we do with police officers, police agencies engaging more with the youth to develop those good relationships so that they're looked at as a positive?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that's a great thing. Coming out to events, something beautiful about St. Pete is, every Friday, which I'm normally there. I'm not there tonight. There's the Not My Son campaign, and the police officers come together with our community residents, and not only are we showcasing unity, we're showcasing that trying to get rid of gun violence, right? So we do a well job at trying to get our police officers acclimated in our community. And there's always room for improvements, right? There's always room, coming out, hanging out with the community, walking with them. And so that's what we want to see more of, and just see more mentors, more people that can be that father figure, be that mother figure as well, too. I can go there after school, let these kids know, hey, you can be somebody, right? Because for me, that's what got me over the hill, is that I had people constantly telling me you can be somebody one day. You don't have to be a statistic. You don't have to be because your mom had you at teenage pregnancy. You don't have to be that statistic. Just because your parents didn't go to college, you don't have to be that statistic. And it was these role models. It was these people that weren't paid. They were volunteers, right? That seen something in me that continued to make me where I am today. And I
So,
want to talk about that.
let me ask you this question. You, since we've got about, I don't know, about 8 minutes left, what makes you, and I love doing this because you don't have your opponents. So you're running for Florida House District 70. So now you've got the floor here. What makes you better, do you think, than your opponents as to why you think voters should choose you over your opponents?
Love it. Well, I'm somebody that knows how to get the job done, as I shared earlier. And every football and every sports team, any business deal that I've done, I know how to bring people together. I know how to rally a community, and I know how to work with people from all different walks of life to get the job done for the greater good. I put the community in front of me my entire life. Google it, look at my past track record of what I've done. And it's not about me. It's about our community, right? We have to have somebody that can break barriers. We have to have someone that can bring our people together. We have to have somebody who can bring unity back to the community. And that's
now that you mentioned that, and we are short on time. I'm sorry to interrupt. Sorry to interrupt, but I do want to. Now that you're talking about unity and bringing people together, let's say you win. Listen, House District 70, the public, the electorate, they're blessed in having good choices. I've had the opportunity to interact with you. I love your heart as it relates to the disabled community. I love that about you, Mark, that you are
that's awesome.
serving this community. Really.
Mhm.
I've had a chance to interact with two of your opponents, not Keisha Bell at all yet. Hopefully I will, but Michelle Grimsley is a wonderful person. I've had great interactions with Michelle Rayner as well. So let's say you win. Would you be willing to still, if they which I anticipate they're going to always be involved with the community, would you work with them? Or if you didn't win, would you try to help them, however, so that they can better serve this district? That's the question. That's my last question for tonight, and then I'm gonna let you address the electorate with whatever last words you have for them.
That's a great question, and I actually called my opponent when they're in the race, and I said, if you win, I'm behind you 100%, and that's how it should be, right? We're literally, the problem is, personally, what I see with the party being a young candidate is that we're tearing ourselves apart. We're tearing our community apart. We're tearing down one another. When at the end of the day, a lot of us have we carry the same values, right? So that's the big issue that I'm noticing, is that we'll have people say we want to get younger people involved. And then when we get involved, you're too young, wait your time. Why not wait? Be an aide. And then we have people that we can have the same belief, but they're still splitting this community. And that's a big issue, right? And before I got into this race, I heard politics was dirty. I didn't know how dirty it was. And, I've been attacked. My family's been attacked for being white, called Trump supporter. I've been attacked for being too young, been attacked for my voting history, and many other things. So I even addressed that. I'd asked all 4 of my candidates to sign a fair campaign pledge, that we won't run a dirty race, that we won't change voters' ideas off not true facts, and we're not going to attack one another, right? I asked all 4 of my opponents to sign this pledge with me publicly multiple times, and actually I'm going to throw a bone to one of my opponents. Michelle Grimsley actually was the only candidate to sign that pledge, and she called me immediately on the spot once I asked. She's like, hey, what can I do I want to do this? And she's like, I don't want to run a dirty campaign. If you win, I'm behind you. And I said, same thing. I'm like, let's grab coffee and let's talk, because it's not about, we need to show that we're together right now. We're in the minority, and we need to start planning together, because whoever's elected out of these 4 candidates, we're not going to go anywhere. I hope none of us go anywhere, right? I hope that we all stay working. They're great candidates. I hope everybody continues to work in this community, because one day we're going to have to work together. Right. So whoever wins, I'm behind them 100%.
I'm glad to hear that. So you have a couple of minutes to address the electorate with whatever last words you have, unless Nina has something else that she'd like to ask.
I want you, Mark, to talk to your folks, your constituency, and tell them more about yourself.
In a couple of minutes.
I'm accessible, right? My cell phone number, I'll give it again, 727-831-2829. Reach me, have a conversation with me. Right? If there's something that you've heard or rumor, ask me. I'd love to have a conversation. I'm open to it. I'm transparent. As I said before, I didn't have to jump into this race. If I didn't think I was the right person for the job, if I didn't think I could make a difference, I'm humble enough to drop. I would be humble enough to drop out. But that's not the case. And that's why I'm here. I put the community first my entire life. I'm not a polished politician. I'm a regular person who wants to see change for our people. And I've raised right around $50,000 with no call list, with just my cell phone, right? I don't have any big name campaign manager. I don't have any big names doing that. This is just the work that I've done through the community. And we're talking about getting down and dirty. We're running a straight grassroots campaign. I buckle up my shoes every day, and we're out engaging with the community, right? So we're showing that we're here to work. And the way I'm working to win this election, I'm going to work just as hard when I'm representing you in Tallahassee.
Thanks for coming on, Mark. It was a pleasure having you on. Thanks, Nina, for joining me as well. Yes. You're an awesome co-host. Love you very much. So good luck. Good luck, Mark.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Mark, it was a pleasure. Thank you so much. Very much so.
Have a great evening, Mark.
You too.